Sum and difference formulas, part 2. So give the exact value of the sine, cosine, and tangent of this given angle. So our angle is 255 degrees. Right now, this is not on our unit circle, but we still want to be able to evaluate it exactly. So we're going to look for two numbers as angles that add or subtract to 255 degrees. So look at your unit circle and see if you can find two angles that are on the unit circle that add or subtract to 255 degrees. All right, you should have gotten something possibly like this. 300 degrees minus 45 degrees is 255 degrees. So this is going to be our U, and that is going to be our V in our formulas. So 255 degrees equals 300 degrees minus 45 degrees. All right, let's go ahead and find the exact value of the sine of 255 degrees. So we want to find out what is the sine of 255 degrees. So the formula we're going to use is this second one. And it's kind of small, so I rewrote it here in the blue. So I'm going to plug in my U and my V. My U, remember, is 300 degrees. My V, up here in the circle, is 45 degrees. So I say the sine of 300 degrees times the cosine of 45 degrees minus the cosine of 300 degrees times the sine of 45 degrees. Now what we're going to do is we're going to simplify the right-hand side, and we're going to use our unit circle. So remember, the sine is always your y, and the cosine is always your x in your ordered pairs. So let's go find 300 degrees on the unit circle. This is our cosine value, and that's our sine value. And then we have 45 degrees. This is your cosine value, and that's your sine value. And we're going to go ahead and substitute those numbers in. So let's start with the sine of 300 degrees. The sine of 300 degrees is negative square root of 3 over 2. So we say negative square root of 3 over 2. Then we're going to find the cosine of 45 degrees. That's right here. Square root of 2 over 2. And then minus. Now we're going to find the cosine of 300 degrees, which is 1/2, times the sine of 45 degrees, which is square root of 2 over 2. Now the rest of the problem is just to simplify this equation. So I'm going to have two fractions I have to multiply across. So negative 3 square roots of 2 is negative 6 square roots of negative square root of 6, and then 2 times 2 is 4. And then over here in the second fraction, again, multiply across. You get square root of 2 over 4. Now we can just combine this into one fraction. Negative square root of 6 minus square root of 2 all over 4. This is the exact value for the sine of 255 degrees. Now let's find the exact value for the cosine of 255 degrees. So we're going to use this formula. I have the formula set down below here. I'm just circling it in the green, and then I rewrote it in the red a little bit bigger for you to see. So now we're doing the cosine of 300 degrees minus 45 degrees, which is 255 degrees. So now we substitute it in. The cosine, remember this is your U, and that's your V. Cosine of 300 degrees times the cosine of 45 degrees plus the sine of 300 degrees times the sine of 45 degrees. Now we'll use that same unit circle. and plug in our numbers. So the cosine of 300 degrees is 1/2. The cosine of 45 degrees is square root of 2 over 2. The sine of 300 degrees is negative square root of 3 over 2. And the sine of 45 degrees is square root of 2 over 2. Now we'll multiply our fractions together, multiply across. 1 square root of 2 over 4 minus square root of 6 over 4. Combine your fractions together, and you get the square root of 2 minus the square root of 6 all over 4. What we found is the exact value for the cosine of 255 degrees. Our last step is to find the tangent of 255 degrees. So the formula we're going to use is right here. I've just increased it in the black. So you want to say, what is the tangent of 300 degrees minus 45 degrees? So here's your u, there is your v. So we're going to take the tangent of 300 degrees minus the tangent of 45 degrees all over 1 plus the tangent of 300 degrees times tangent of 45 degrees. Now let's head over to our unit circle. If you remember your unit circle, the ordered pairs represent the sine and the cosine. We haven't found the tangent, so let's start with 45 degrees. Let's find the tangent of 45 degrees. So remember, tangent represents the sine of 45 degrees over the cosine of 45 degrees. So we get square root of 2 over 2 divided by square root of 2 over 2, which is 1. Now let's find 300 degrees and take the tangent of that. So the tangent of 300 degrees equals the sine of 300 degrees divided by the cosine of 300 degrees. So here's our cosine, there's our sine. So we're going to take negative square root of 3 over 2 and divided by one-half. We should simplify that as a fraction divided by a fraction. So remember how we remember that is the keep, change rule. So I'm going to change it to multiplication and then flip the fraction, reciprocate it. Now these 2's cancel out, multiply across, and you get negative square root of 3. So what we're going to work with is the tangent of 45 degrees equals 1, and the tangent of 300 degrees equals negative square root of 3. And that's what's going to go into our formula up above. So we'll go ahead. Equals tangent of 300 degrees, we just found to be negative square root of 3, minus tangent of 45 degrees, which is 1, all over 1 plus tangent of 300 degrees is negative square root of 3. Tangent of 45 degrees is 1. Now let's simplify this. So I'm going to just flip-flop the terms in the numerator. So I have negative 1 minus the square root of 3. I'm going to multiply the 1 in the denominator. So I have 1 minus the square root of 3. Now if we look at that fraction, it has a radical in the denominator. If you remember radicals in the denominator, you have to rationalize it. So I'm going to first just rewrite the fraction. And then I'm going to rationalize it. So you have to take the conjugate of that denominator. So it's 1 plus the square root of 3 over 1 plus the square root of 3. Now we multiply across. So we're going to FOIL. So negative 1 times 1 is negative 1. Negative 1 times square root of 3 is negative 1 square roots of 3. Negative square root of 3 times 1 is negative 1 square root of 3. And then negative square root of 3 times square root of 3 is negative 3. There is our numerator. In our denominator, we get to use our cheater foil because we're multiplying by conjugate. So we only have to worry about the first and the last. Negative square root of 3 times square root of 3 is negative 3. All right, so let's simplify this. Negative 1 and negative 3 are like terms, so that becomes negative 4. And then negative 1 square root of 3, negative 1 square root of 3 is negative 2 square root of 3. And then all over, 1 minus 3 is negative 2. If you wanted to simplify it a little farther, you could take out a negative 2. So you're left with 2 plus 1 square root of 3 all over negative 2. And then how that helps us is those negative 2's cancel out. So your final answer then for the tangent of 255 degrees is 2 plus a square root of 3. Exactly.